Well, it wasn't that long ago that the former shipbuilding and steel-making city of Whyalla in South Australia was down on its luck and fearful about the impact of a carbon price. It was actually a union leader who said Whyalla would be wiped off the map by a carbon tax, but when Tony Abbott repeated that prognosis, it triggered one of the most embarrassing political stunts of all time.
Whyalla wipeout there on my TV, no Whyalla wipeout there on my TV, no Whyalla wipeout there on my TV, shocking me right out of my brain.
Right out of his brain, all right. Should never miss an opportunity to play that grab of the Labor Party's Senator Emerson. Well, the Whyalla Steelworks were saved by British business maverick Sanjeev Gupta. And all had been going well until now. Gupta is facing legal action over financing and he's desperately trying to refinance and save his global mining and steel empire. Whyalla is having its feet held to the fire yet again. Let's cross to the local federal member, that is the Liberal MP Rowan Ramsey, who joins us from Port Pirie. Good to speak to you, Rowan. How worried should the people of Whyalla be about the future of their steelworks?
Yeah, g'day, Chris. Look, I don't think they should be particularly worried at the moment, or we have been through very similar situations to this before. Sure, it's unsettling, and particularly to the suppliers. But I only in the last hour or so spoke to GFG Alliance representatives, and they are very confident of being able to refinance the loans based around Whyalla in reasonable time, like in the next month or two. And then we will be back to where we were. Now, there's quite a difference now to 2017 when Mr Gupta bought the RM assets. At that time, the steel plant was not running at capacity and it was losing quite a bit of money. But that's all turned around in the last 12 months or so, where the steel plant is actually in the black and it's operating just about at capacity. Even as iron ore prices are at a very high level, which of course they use for feedstock, even though it's coming from Mr Gupta's mines. So things I think are generally better than they were then, and I think we should feel good about the worst possible result. The best possible result, though, is that Mr Gupta gets the finance and we can move on.
He's looking to refinance his whole operation, the billions of dollars in play. Now, obviously, he's got some problems with his global empire. If he's having to desperately refinance it, what's the backup plan if he can't afford to keep the Whyalla Steelworks going?
Well, I mean, I think we're a long way from that point, Chris. But if you played this right down the line to its final end and consider that GFG Alliance is going to fail, which I don't consider is likely, but if it is, then those assets will come back on the market. And Grant Thornton, I think, has said that they would be looking to keep the asset alive. There's not much value in a dead steel plant, I can tell you, that once it shuts down, it won't reopen. So it's absolutely vital it keeps going. And it's vital for the nation, I might say, because it is the only place in Australia that produces heavy, long product, structural steel, if you like, rail. And if anything, the last 12 months is showing us is that Australia needs to retain sovereign capacity in some key areas. And if a nation wants to hold its head up and hold its buildings up and hold its bridges up, I'd suggest that would be in heavy steel. Yeah,
there's a lot of focus and a lot of support, of course, to maintain our independence, our national sovereignty over key industry and manufacturing. Is there any talk about government involvement to try and support this particular steelworks operation, to try and, I suppose, insulate it from the global effects of what's happening to Sanjeev Gupta's empire?
Well, I mean, there's been calls from predictable areas, including the leader of the opposition in South Australia, the Labor leader of the opposition. But in fact, I would say that any government stood into the space and said, we're going to put a safety blanket under any business when things are undetermined, when the business is actually saying it's going to continue, that it will refinance, would be just writing out a cheque for taxpayers' money with virtually no end in it. Because if somebody gets to the position of saying, well, you're going to save me no matter what, I think we've got a problem. So I don't think we're anywhere near that stage at the moment. This has got a long way to play. It'll take some time in the courts. It's a bit of a, I'm not a financial expert or a legal expert, But it seems to me that Mr Gupta hasn't borrowed any money from Credit Suisse, and yet they are pursuing their assets. He borrowed his money from Greensill. Credit Suisse put a line of credit through to Greensill. I think the logical thing seems to be you have to start with Greensill. And that is in administration. It's not in liquidation at this stage. We presume it will be liquidated somewhere down the track. But I think this has got a long way to play yet, and we shouldn't be panicking. You
don't want to panic, and you've got a lot of people in that area. They've had coal-fired power stations closed down, the cloud over the Whyalla Steelworks in the past. You want to make sure that that industry sticks around for thousands of families, no doubt.
Look, the outcome for Whyalla would be worse than devastating. I have said since 2013 from every Prime Minister we've had, that's 3 of them, Chris, that I reckon we'd have 5,000 people on job seeker virtually overnight. There'd be a whole generation of people that have their major asset in Whyalla. They're attached to their houses. That would be almost worthless overnight. They wouldn't be moving anywhere in a big hurry. And then, of course, you get the knock-on effects of intergenerational disengagement and unemployment. There is a very large social cost that would follow it. But I come back to the point that I was making about Australia needing a structural steel capacity. This is the only place in Australia we make it. And we need to not only retain it, we need to see new investment there to make sure that it's at the cutting edge of world steel production.
Thanks for joining us, Rowan. I appreciate it.
Good to be with you, Chris. Thanks very much.
Rowan Ramsey, the Liberal Federal MP for that neck of the woods, a vast area he covers in the north of South Australia. Let's hope that Whyalla pulls through, those steelworks pull through this major finance and legal play.